Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Human Resolve podcast. I'm here with my guest, Ellen Albertson. Ellen, please introduce yourself.
Thank you, Savia. So awesome to be here. So I'm known as the Midlife Whisperer, and I'm kind of your one-stop shop for all your midlife needs. So I handle body, mind, heart, spirit, relationships. What I really help women do at midlife, and some guys too, is get real, discover who they are, and really give them the tips that they need to navigate life. Because midlife is challenging. There's a lot of transforming, there's a lot going on. And I feel like people need a guidebook. They need a blueprint to how to really use this time period to transform so they can really create another amazing chapter for themselves.
Wonderful. So I know you and I connected because you contributed to my interview series with Authority Magazine and Thrive Global, Rising Through Resilience, How to Be Resilient During Turbulent Times. And what I found what really grabbed my attention is this idea that you sort of focus on with self-compassion, that essentially you should be your own good friend. Can you elaborate a little more on that?
Sure. Well, that's essentially the essence of self-compassion is learning to treat yourself the way you would a good friend. And if you think about it, just imagine for a moment that you have a good friend and they've had something happen, maybe a health crisis, they've had a relationship issue or something with maybe their work. And think about, how do you treat them? What tone of voice do you use? What's your posture like? What would you do, right? If you had a friend and just said, "Oh my God, I just got this health diagnosis and I'm falling apart," you would like run right over there. You would give them a hug, make them dinner, try to help them out, right? And so think about what happens yourself. So think about a time in your life where you've had a health crisis, problem with work, relationship issue. Think about, how do you treat yourself? And if you're like most people, and I've done this with probably thousands of people at this point, and usually people are like, "Oh my God, I treat myself so differently." Like with myself, I'm like, "Oh my God, why is this happening to me?" Or "Why was I so stupid?" Or "I got to go into fix it mode." So with self-compassion, we are treating ourselves like a good friend. So there's three elements to self-compassion. The first is being kind rather than judgmental. You're not being judgmental and saying this shouldn't be happening, or why is this happening, or what did I do wrong? You're being kind. You're like, "Oh my God, I'm so sorry that this is happening." The next piece is common humanity, understanding that everybody makes mistakes. We all fail. We all go through things. I think that's something that COVID showed us, is like, we're all in this boat of like going through suffering and stress. Then the third piece is mindfulness. You are aware when you're struggling. Again, so often we just like not even aware that we're freaking out, we're upset. Like I think about years ago, occasionally I would get get stopped by a police officer, and my heart would be pounding a mile a minute and I'd be beating myself up. Why did I do this? Instead of just, wow, this is really hard. I'm here for me right now. So the cool thing about self-compassion is that no matter where you are, self-compassion is a state and a trait, but no matter where you are on the spectrum. So if you're like much more in the self-loathing, self-critical, and you can learn self-compassion. It is a muscle. Like, I know you come from a personal fitness trainer background. I do too. We go to the gym to build our muscles. We practice self-compassion. We go to the self-compassion gym by noticing when we're stressed, we're struggling, giving ourselves what we need, and that self-compassion muscle gets stronger.
Yeah. You've had so many lives, like dietitian, a journalist. I mean, can you just take us back? Take us back to, the trajectory of your career so far.
Sure. Well, I started in the corporate world, and I was climbing this ladder of success, but it was up against the wrong building. I've been told like this is what you should do. And I went to a very prestigious school, and I got in the corporate world in New York City. My life kind of fell apart, and I realized I needed to transform what I was doing. And I'd always loved nutrition. My mom was super interested in healthy eating, and I was always really interested in helping people. So becoming a dietitian felt like a really good fit for me. And I was fortunate enough to find a program at Boston University that was nutrition communication. So I got to roll in this communications piece, which has sort of followed me throughout my life with the nutrition piece. So I became a dietitian, but then I also learned how to get in front of a camera. I learned how to be a journalist, learned how to, do radio. So I started out my career as a dietitian, as an outpatient dietitian. As I was building my journalism career in sort of health and wellness reporting, my ex-husband and I became the cooking couple. So we were celebrity chefs in the 90s. And then that sort of all fell apart, as we were going through this transition into the internet. And I decided to become a personal fitness trainer. I literally got a postcard in the mail. I never thought about that as a career, but I've always been a jock. So I was like, that would be really fun. Like, I would just love to hand people weights all day and motivate them. And like, I love being in a gym. Like, didn't want to go back and be clinical. I don't like being behind a desk. So I worked as a personal fitness trainer. And that is where I found out about coaching, because as a dietitian, I learned to tell people, eat this, don't eat that. But people knew what to eat, but they weren't doing it. So this whole behavior, I know we're both national board certified health and wellness coaches, right? So I didn't have the psychological skills to get people to change their lifestyle, change their behavior. I could say, eat this, don't eat that, have carrots instead of, corn chips. But I didn't know how to get them to eat carrots instead of corn chips. So that led me to coaching, which was just so amazing. And the whole coaching journey has been so amazing for self-discovery. I know we were talking off air that we need to coach ourselves, right? We always need to be growing and learning as coaches. So coaching is a huge backbone of what I do. And then from that, I became a psychologist because I wanted more degrees, partially because this sort of quest for accomplishments and degrees was kind of a bit of hiding my authenticity, honestly. And that's a big piece of what I do with people at midlife, because sometimes we are always feeling, when I get this next degree, this next certificate, if I lose the weight or change, looking to change things on the outside. And we're not working on the inside. So over the last decade or so, finding self-compassion, that was my dissertation topic, that really transformed me from the inside, where I started feeling really good about myself. And I didn't need more degrees or, accomplishments, that I could really feel like I was enough. Both my body, I had negative body image and eating disorders, and, trying always this quest to be perfect, and really reversed all that. Now I just start with self-love and everything unfolds from there. So that's, I kind of use all my skills. I'm also a Reiki master. So I have this very strong spiritual bent. I'm a mindful self-compassion teacher. I was fortunate enough to study with Kristen Neff and learn self-compassion. So just using all these skills, I feel like I have a very well-rounded toolbox to really support people.
I know two of the other traits that you and I share is our love of curiosity and self-learners. And what I really loved is appreciated is your honesty in, being in a toxic marriage and having two kids and being diagnosed with clinical depression. Can you take us back? What do you feel or sense was the life lessons there for you?
Yeah. So the depression issue was intense, because by the time I got to the psychiatrist and got diagnosed, it was such a relief, because I was like, what is wrong with me? Like, I am just not functioning well here. I am sad all the time. I'm crying. I mean, I think menopause was part of it. It's sort of a double-edged sword that, women are going through menopause. Women at midlife have the highest rate of depression for any group for gender and age. So I think my life lessons there were, this is an illness. Just like I know you work a lot with people who are going through cancer. It's an illness. But a lot of times we don't consider mental health illnesses to be an illness. And it really, really was. And that was a huge lesson, that it was an illness. It was treatable through medication, lifestyle change, therapy. And that was a huge thing for me. I think that the other big life lesson, other lessons were, you don't have to stay in a marriage that's not working for you. I think that we're taught, that, marriage is supposed to be forever, but we change as people. And it's okay if you're feeling like, what, I just don't want to be on this trajectory. We're not going in the same way. I need to leave, which is really hard. Divorce is a very hard thing. I think that when we're talking about, divorce, cancer, any kind of these transitions, transformations, you kind of like have to rebuild yourself from scratch. So that was just really learning how resilient I was or am getting through something like divorce, and that realizing that it's truly, all of these things are truly caterpillar to butterfly. When the caterpillar becomes the butterfly, it literally digests itself. It secretes an acidic goo, and it becomes like just this gooey mass, and its DNA is still the same, but transformation's messy. It's really, really messy. I think that our consumer culture says, oh, redo your home, you redecorate, lose some weight, get a new outfit, redo your hair. We want this like boom, instant transformation, but true, deep internal stuff is very messy. But I think my final lesson is that self-compassion will get you through everything. Self-compassion truly is your superpower. It is both a parachute and a life vest. So it is a parachute so that, I know both of us are on these big trajectories, right? We're trying to do more, be more, help more people. And it's scary. Entrepreneurs jumping off that cliff one more time. But with self-compassion, it's like, okay, I can hold myself, if I don't do so good, it's like, okay, I can be here comforting, soothing myself. I've got these skills to soothe myself. But it's also a life vest when we get that health diagnosis, when someone we love is sick or passes, when we're going through the kind of crisis that our world is going through right now. It's a life vest that really gives you specific tools and ways of managing your emotions to get you through it. I think in our culture, we're taught that, it's okay to feel joy and gratitude and happiness, but God forbid we should be sad or scared or grieve. This sort of this toxic positivity where it's not okay to feel the difficult emotions, but that is totally false. We're human. I mean, the Dalai Lama, Jesus, Gandhi, Mother Teresa, these incredible people all felt sad. They all grieved. They all were scared. It's part of being human. Jesus is up on the cross. He's not like, I'm just going to let that go, God. He's suffering, right? So we have to learn how to embrace all of our emotions, how to process them and use them in a way that really can deepen us and help us to be bigger, bolder humans.
Yeah, yeah. In the piece, you also mentioned that when Christine Neff agreed to be on your dissertation, there were like two takeaways that you learned, two lessons. That self-compassion is incredibly powerful. I love that. And that we have the equation reversed, like self-loathing never leads to self-love. And it was so powerful. It hit me literally right in my heart when when I read it. Can you expound more on that?
Sure. Well, I used to think, and I can talk about body image because that was my topic for my dissertation. I used to think, when I was perfect, when I beat myself up enough, right? So beat up my body, get more degrees, make more money, all of these success things, then I'll feel good about myself. And I would, with my clients, I'd be like, okay, when you lose the weight, when you have the six-pack abs, then you'll feel good about your body. But what happens is when we start with self-loathing, it's like we have this backpack that is filled with not enough, not good enough, not smart enough, not thin enough, right? And so when we beat ourselves up, we're carrying that into our future, and that's what shows up. And when we beat ourselves up, we generate cortisol, which is the hormone of fight or flight. And cortisol, the research really shows, is that it undermines motivation. When someone yells at you, you don't feel motivated. You might feel motivated for a moment, like, okay, I'll do it. Yeah, I'll do that thing. But really what happens is we're so tired. We're so drained. Cortisol gets us going, but then the aftermath of it is just everything's inflamed. It's bad for our health, our mental health, our emotional health. So, but now what I start with my clients is let's start with loving yourself. And let's, lift those weights because you care about yourself. You want to be happy and free of suffering. Don't want to be a bent over 80-year-old. You want to be fit and healthy and feel good and not have those worries in your life. So when we start with self-love, we take those actions. Research really shows people who have more self-compassion go to the doctor. They have healthier relationships. They're more compassionate to others. They're kinder to themselves. They're, again, more optimistic, more resilient. So, but on the flip side too, the lower things are dealt with too. There's less depression, anxiety, and stress, more happiness, more optimism, more joy. So you start with self-love and self-compassion, and everything really changes from there because you stop doing those things that insult your soul. You get out of the marriage or the relationship that's not working, the job you hate. You find that time to take care of your body. You do all of those things that are in your best interest.
I know you affectionately call yourself the Midlife Whisperer, and I love it. It's the non-judgmental one stop for your midlife needs. Um, where did that idea formulate from?
I was literally at a conference for the Entrepreneur Women's Network, and we were thinking a lot about brands, and I was meeting a lot of cool people, very creative space, and like I got curious. I was like, oh, what do I do? Like, what would really
Mm.
encapsulate that? And it just boom, it was just this divine download that was just the Midlife Whisperer, and I was like, wow, that kind of says it all. And I was shocked that nobody had it. Nobody had the URL. And not only did I get it right away, I literally like went to GoDaddy and like grabbed it, trademarked it. As just like that day that it hit my head in my head, there was a one of the speakers, and he utilized the term the jewelry whisperer, and that was kind of like a confirmation. And when I say it, people really get it, and so that's why I'm grateful that I was able to embody that. And I really feel like it really encapsulates my work because yeah, I'm tough. I'm a tough coach. I've been a trainer. I've got a tiger as a power animal. I'm tough, but I'm also tender and I'm compassionate and I listen deeply and I create a non-judgmental space for my clients and fans and followers. So I think it really hits the right note.
Yeah. So, Ellen, I want to come back to the focus of today's conversation. So, how do you define resilience?
Well, I think just being able to, I was hearing this. I think it was Oprah's written a book about it. This idea of, I think she talks about it. We think about it as bounce back, but it's not quite bounce back. It's more like a coat hanger. Those metal
Mm.
coat hangers, right? They bend. So it's more like you're bending, you're transforming. So I feel like there's a transformational piece. It's not just about bouncing back, but it's like you're bouncing, but you're bouncing into a new you. You're coming through something. You're the hero of your own journey. You're facing, the dark night of the soul, difficult things in your life. For me, one of the things I talk about in my book, Rock Your Midlife, is I went blind 3 times. I didn't have the cancer journey that, you talk about in your marvelous book, but my retina detached 3 times in my good eye. I've always struggled with my eyesight. I had cataract surgery. And then shortly after that, my retina detached, and it was like, I needed resilience because not only did I have to keep the faith that I was going to get my sight back, but I needed to do this thing called positioning, where I needed to stay face down on a massage table for 19 to 20 hours a day for like a month, which was really hard. I could get up to take a quick walk and make a sandwich, but that was about it. But resilience is being able to bounce back, but like bounce back and transform. So you become something different. You become like that coat hanger that takes a different form, but it's still able to hold on to that suit, or maybe your suit that you're wearing has changed. So I hope that's a good definition.
Yeah, there was a keyword you used there, which I love: positive adaptation to stressful, adverse events. And to me, I got the visual right away. And I would definitely agree that when it comes to resilience, it's not about sort of the finish line always. It's about the process towards the finish line. And I just loved how you sort of explained that, or detailed that. I also asked in the piece about courage. Do you see courage and resilience as one and the same, different?
I see them as different. I think of courage as, it's definitely a character strength, and we all have it to some degree. And the word courage, the root of the word is core, which is the French word for heart. So I think about courage as being able to follow your heart. So I think about resilience as having adversity and being able to bounce and transform from that. And I see courage more as following a path with heart. So doing those things that are really tough, but you feel like this is what my heart is telling me that I need to do going forward.
Yeah. In the piece, also, you mentioned one of your sheroes when it comes to resilience is Oprah Winfrey. Um, how has she played a big role in your life when it comes to the notion of resilience?
Wow, well, she's like the quintessential, like, wow. I mean, I will admit I am a woman of privilege. I did not grow up poor to a teenage mother, live as a Black woman living in the South. I mean, and she had a pregnancy herself. I mean, she went through hell, and she really transformed herself, and she is so inspirational, and she speaks from her heart, and she has had throughout her career so many ups and downs and so many attacks and issues, and each time that resilience, right? Well, the courage, she follows her heart, and then the resilience that she really bounces back. She becomes bigger and bolder and better, and I think more now she really is doing what she wants to do with her life. She's both, I love her brand because it's so authentic. And she is both helping women, but she's rocking her life, right? She's like, she's growing her vegetables. You can see she's having a good time. She worked her butt off for years. And she's like, you know what? It's time for me to enjoy my life. So I think she really is, I think when she had her show, that was, I can't imagine what it's like to have a show of that magnitude 5 days a week for 25 years. And she's just helped so many people, and she's so wise, and she just is so heartfelt, and just a beautiful light in the world. And I think we're living in these times, and I found that and starting to read your book, I loved it so much because there are so many heroes and heroes in the world that we're seeing with all of the tragedy. We're just seeing these people who are just like, I'm standing up to it. And I think that's the big change that we're seeing right now. And I think that media has really allowed that to happen, where all of us can have a platform and all of us can stand up and say, I don't like what I see in the world. It used to be like, there were people in charge and everybody had to like line up and do things. And we're all seeing everything that's happening in the world. And I really feel like most of us want, to be happy and peaceful. And a lot of people are just standing up for what is wrong now. And we're all, Bowie, we could all be heroes.
Yeah, yeah. And I also love it when you mentioned that you had a lot of pushback for your fifth book, Rock Your Midlife, and how people were telling you that you couldn't do it yourself, but you were like, I'm going to, and I'm going to make it a bestseller. And I just love that sheer determination, because I think it takes that. What was the journey like for you with that process?
Yeah, well, I found an agent, and a really great agent, and I really resonated with her. But my following just wasn't big enough. I mean, it's hard to get a book deal, and I mean, I worked a little bit on getting my following, and then I just said, I'm going to do it. This is my fifth book, and I've had one large publisher, one Simon and Schuster, and several some self-published. I kind of did it before. It was work, but it's really so gratifying, to look back at looking at the book behind me and just feeling really good about it. But it took grit, it took you have to really believe in yourself, because no one else, on the one hand, no one else is giving you a deadline. So you have to realize, okay, I'm the only one putting pressure on me, so I can relax a little bit. So we have to have this sort of balancing act between relaxing and like, if it's an extra week, the deadline gets pushed up, it's okay. I'm in charge of what's going on with this. But at the same time, pushing yourself and having the confidence that it was going to be good and that there was a need in the marketplace for Rock Your Midlife, and pushing through. But I had a lot of support too. So a lot of good people out there to help me edit it and put it together and learn how to do it. But again, places like Amazon are making it really easy for people to put their stories out there, to be creators.
Yeah. So, I referenced this earlier, but you've had so many lives, so to speak, corporate, executive nutritionist, journalist, celebrity chef, trainer, transformational coach, psychologist. What's next, Ellen? What's your big vision?
My big vision. Well, I'm a tiger, so I have 9 lives, right? So it's my power animal. But I want to rebrand midlife. Midlife really needs rebranding. When you Google midlife, what comes up is crisis. It's conjoined with crisis. And also when you put it in thesaurus, it is that you see the wrong side of 40. And I'm like, ageism is a real thing. Like, we've talked about all of these other isms that we're working through. But like, I was in a yoga class the other day, and I was easily the oldest person in the room. I'm looking at 60 right now, and I don't feel old. I don't think I look particularly old, but I guess in a lot of eyes, like 60 is kind of old. So ageism, in terms of like professionally, I'm actually starting a radio show myself. So I think when this comes out, it starts actually March 23rd. It is called Rock Your Midlife. It's going to be on Voice America. So it's going to be a live radio show where I'm going to be taking in callers. And so I feel like I'm going to have this really great platform and opportunity to help midlife women discover who they are, get real, and get the tools to navigate life. So just helping more and more women. So hopefully when my 25-year-old daughter gets to be midlife, she can be like, wow, mom, midlife is a really cool time.
Yeah, 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 yeah. So, Ellen, what are your 5 steps that someone can do to become more resilient?
Well, number one is practice self-compassion. So I think we've talked a lot about that, is treat yourself like a good friend. And there are tons of resources, courses, if you want to start to flex your self-compassion muscle. Number two is practice mindfulness. So mindfulness and compassion are kind of like two wings of a bird. Mindfulness is just about being present, and it is another superpower. So it's experiencing what you're experiencing, why you are experiencing. The reason it's so powerful is that, as humans, we have this default mode network that runs down the center of our brain, which is always scanning our environment for what is wrong with us in our lives and danger and what could go wrong. But being in the present moment is really all you've got. It's where the magic happens. And so when you are present, you're enjoying your life. You're turning off that default mode network that's constantly looking for danger. And I think we're in this world now where we're looking at the media, we're worrying about things, but you get present. And so practicing, just like self-compassion, you can practice being mindful. Maybe practicing one thing in your life that you do every day. Maybe it's getting in your car, or when you're with your kids, or when you brush your teeth in the morning or in the evening. So mindfulness is really, really important. Number three is authenticity. And it's the first step in my book. Self-compassion, loving yourself is the second. Authenticity is really important because for a couple of reasons. You got to feel comfortable in your skin. Like if you don't know who you are, you're going to feel really lost. And as I was sort of saying earlier, you're going to be like climbing up that ladder of success that's against the wrong building. And you're going to wonder when you get to the top, why you're not enjoying the view. So it's really about knowing yourself, having the courage to be yourself, to let yourself, shine. And I think the other piece of that too is, when all of us love ourselves, when all of us are mindful, practicing self-compassion, being authentic, then we give everybody else the permission to do the same. And we're not looking to hurt anybody else because we feel good about who we are and we're there for ourselves. So authenticity is really important. I would say number four is rehabbing your relationships. I mean, we're humans. We are in relationship. And what happens so often is when we start to change and transform, people still think that we are the caterpillar. We're like, no, look, I'm a butterfly. Look at me. I bounced back from this thing and I've changed, I've transformed. So we need to have skills to learn how to let go of the people pleaser, how to create some boundaries, how to get our needs met, and really work on those relationships. Because I know for myself, that's been one of the hardest things for me, is standing up to people that I love, even family members, and when they're like, no, you don't want to do that. I'm like, no, I really do want to do that. I've had family members tell me, you don't want to be on a bigger stage. You wrote your book, now just go to sleep, it's done. But I'm like, no, I want to be on a bigger stage. I want to help more people. It's what I'm here to do. But rehabbing your relationships is really, really important. We need people to support us, right, to help us to be resilient. But if they're not supporting the true us, then that's not going to be of use. And if we're constantly trying to be a people pleaser, be the good girl or guy, then that's going to undermine our ability to bounce back. And then I would say, work on your positive emotions. We talked about toxic positivity. So it's not about being Pollyanna and being super happy all the time. There are difficulties in the world. We need to process those emotions, but it's also working on elevating your vibe, elevating your emotions. And the research really shows, this is the research of Barbara Fredrickson, is that when we have a higher ratio of positive emotions to negative emotions, we broaden and build. So instead of being in this sort of having fear blinders on, where we're like, okay, what's going to happen? And that is the mindset where we bring that fear mindset into how we perceive the world, our worldview. When we have more positive emotions, when we're more, gratitude, joy, optimism, we broaden and build. When we have more laughter, more joy, we can see the world in a different way. And I really feel like we're in a time right now where we need a ton of resilience, and we all need to believe and have faith in ourselves in a better future. Because if we all feel that way, well, that's what we are going to manifest. There is this thing called collective consciousness, right? Where we are all, like the two of us are all vibing with helping the world, making the world a better place. And we are bringing that into existence. This is quantum physics. And so if we all are working on ourselves and working on raising our vibration, well, the world's going to be a better place, and we're all going to enjoy our lives more.
Yeah. Beautiful. So this is the part of the conversation that I call brainstorming. And one of the things I know you mentioned is sort of this idea of midlife and ageism. I wanted to have a conversation about how do you think things can be different in our world when it comes to that? What are some steps that you and I can maybe think of in the moment that can maybe help that?
Yeah, well, there's that, the self-compassion piece that I've talked about a lot. And I think is also just seeing, looking in people's eyes, right? Like the biggest issue in our world is that we don't see the divinity in everyone and everything. Whatever your religious leanings are, we all are divine beings. We all are holy. We're all important. Everybody matters. And if we can sort of see beyond gender, age, race, when I think about all of that stuff, I'm thinking, this is crazy. Like, why aren't we, holding people with reverence? But I think the first thing is just to see that, to see where our judge, where, holding that, trying to see people in their essence. And also, I guess we all need to look at our own prejudices. I know I have them, I'm starting to, look at those things, noticing what's triggering me, what I need to work on. We all are taught things in our culture, our stories, and we need to work on our stories. So those are a couple of things. And I think too, just, we need to, again, change the way we're looking at midlife. We're living into our 80s. And so we need to really think positively about aging. We're not getting older. We might be slowing down a little bit, but understanding that if we really have a healthy lifestyle, we can live. I mean, I'm making it to 100, 120. I don't know about you, but that we can really, it's not a downhill slog. We are wiser, we're a little slower. My knees are a little creakier, but we can be incredibly wise and resilient for the rest of our lives.
Yeah. Yeah, and I love how you mentioned that it's conjoined with the word crisis. But it's interesting because I just got back, and I mentioned to you, from South by Southwest in Austin, Texas. And what was really big there the last 4 days, I was on the press track, was metaverse, NFTs. And it was really interesting to me because I got to experience, I know a little bit about this world, but I actually got to experience the heavy hitters. And what's interesting to me is that it's like an even playing field. It's like an alternative reality, but the idea of you as a being living in the physical world is no longer. So therefore you can create another identity. And that just got me thinking about this idea of what you and I were speaking of when it comes to brainstorming, about this idea of midlife. Like what is that really? In the physical material world, we know what that is. But in this, there's so much investment now in NFTs and metaverse. I just find like that was going to be an interesting way forward. And I just wanted your thoughts on that as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think that well, you can just think about your cells in your body, that your body turns over constantly and that you can constantly be creating. I think that the way that we perceive and think about ourselves, it can be constantly changing. I mean, you had sort of alluded to how many different hats I've worn. I'm still me.
Yeah.
So it's sort of, I think it's hand in hand of, yeah, we can keep recreating the way that we show up in the world. It's kind of like, I think about that, what was that, Second Life? They used to have that virtual reality, right, where we could decide who we want to be. So we can be and have a different skin, but the essence of who we are, that soul of who we are, stays the same. It's almost like the soul's like driving a different car, and you just get to decide, do I want a Porsche? Do I want a Prius? Do I want a Tesla? Like, what am I going to drive? And maybe we're all moving more towards that, like electric cars that are better for the environment kind of thing. But I love that idea that you brought up.
Yeah, wonderful. So how can my audience find out more about you online?
You can just Google the Midlife Whisperer. Hopefully you don't find me with crisis, but I'm at themidlifewhisperer.com. You can Google Dr. Ellen Albertson. I am on Instagram at the Midlife Whisperer, and I'm on Facebook at Dr. Ellen Albertson. So I'm super easy to find. If you go to my website, you can get my book through there. You can contact me if you'd like to have a conversation about how I can support you. If you're interested in being on my radio show, anything like that, feel free to reach out. I would love to speak with you.
Wonderful, Ellen. Thank you so much. I really, really thoroughly enjoyed today. Thank you.
It was a blast. Thank you so much.
Sure.